Week 2 has officially wrapped up in the NFL, and we will be overreacting to every single winless team that is at this point. And we're going to start off with the Super Bowl rematch. The Kansas City Chiefs lost another game to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Patrick Mahomes has lost 3 in a row, going back to last year's Super Bowl, and he's the first time the Chiefs are 0-2 in the Mahomes era.
Just like the Super Bowl, it wasn't really a great, fun game to watch. But overall, it was a much better performance by the Kansas City Chiefs and also a much worse performance by the Philadelphia Eagles and obviously Jalen Hurts himself, who barely got to 100 passing yards. But when I'm looking at this game, you're kind of seeing the same issues kind of approach the Kansas City Chiefs. Last year, they were able to get away with it somehow and won 15 games. But this year, it feels like it's really catching up to them in terms of the offensive line, Patrick Mahomes' help, and just being put in bad positions, play after play almost.
So how we're going to overreact, we'll react to some of the games as well, like the ones that we need to talk about, but how we're going to react, how we're going to rank our concernability. Pretty much we're going to react to the panic meter. 1 through 10. 10 being the most panicked, and then 0, 1 being the least panicked. And for the Kansas City Chiefs, I have them at a 5. I was teetering them at a 0 because they're the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think they're going to get to the playoffs. The reason why I have them at a 5 is because of their expectations of going back to the Super Bowl. Now, am I going to be surprised if they get back to the Super Bowl this year? No. The reason why I have them at a 5 is because that O-line is atrocious. As simple as that, right? Like, I have a hard time seeing them getting back to the Super Bowl and being competitive, because like if they run into the Ravens and the Bills, and I know what happens every year, they do beat those teams, right? The only team to ever beat them was Tom Brady led teams or Joe Burrow, right? Outside of that, I know they get there, but man, this roster right off the bat, like I said, O-line not good. Mahomes did well against the Chargers, kind of struggled this game, but you saw him going crazy, and the injuries on top of that. Xavier Worthy got hurt. We don't know when he's going to be back. Rashid Rice is still out. I know he's not injured. It's a suspension. He's still out for 4 more games. The reason why I'm 50-50 is because their division, they should be able to, they should take the division still, in my opinion, because they only played 1 game in the division, which was the Chargers, and they ended up losing. And that was technically a quote-unquote away game because it was overseas at Brazil.
The Chiefs against the Eagles are the best team in football.
Yeah.
Like coming into it, we all know that's going to be, they may not be performing exactly like what we expected of the Philadelphia Eagles, but let's be honest, on paper and in terms of getting the job done, the Philadelphia Eagles will get wins and will be the best team in football this year. So in terms of that sense, the panic meter for me is not as high as a 5, but I'm also not giving it a 0. I'm going to give it a 3. And here's number 1. The reason why it goes from 0 to 1. Patrick Mahomes in back-to-back game is your leading rusher. And to me, that is a concern just because he's not Lamar Jackson, he's not Josh Allen, or he's not Jaden Daniels, right?
He's not Jalen Hurts.
And he's not Jalen Hurts, exactly. Patrick Mahomes wants to torch you with his arm. That's his best weapon, not his legs. His legs are good. His legs are useful in terms of scrambling and buying time. And whenever he needs to run, he will run. But in terms of Pacheco and Hunt just getting going, he's going to need some help from his running backs. That's number 1. The reason why I go from 1 to 2 now, Travis Kelce, low-key might be washed up.
that was an unlucky bounce.
That was an unlucky bounce. But in terms of, I'm looking at overall weapon help in general. Kelce's not doing his part. At the end of the day, that's what it is. If it's playoff time, he probably will. But like right now, again, this is probably the 3rd regular season in a row where Travis Kelce is not doing his part as the superstar Hall of Famer, Super Bowl winner tight end that he is. And on top of that, like you said, the injury to Worthy and the Rashid Rice suspension doesn't help overall. So that's another trouble. And then the reason why I go from
2 to
3 is because they have lost a division game. The reason why I'm concerned about that is because this division is not easy. And getting division games is going to be very important. And the fact that our Chargers are coming into, going into potentially week 2 is because we're recording this Sunday night, could be leading the division at 2-0, and you're down 0-2.
One of the 2 teams are going to be 2-0, most likely.
And you're down 0-2, but like Chargers more so.
Yeah.
Like the Chargers have a win over you, and they're 2 games ahead of you, right? That's where you're going to have to look at matchups a little bit, and the division is not going to be easy to come back from. The Raiders shouldn't be a pushover. The Broncos, we know that they could, the hype is real for the Broncos.
They could have been 2-0, right?
They could have been 2-0 themselves, but Daniel Jones exists, and then obviously-
Jonathan Taylor especially exists.
and Jonathan Taylor
But yeah,
exists.
continue.
So like in terms of like the division, it's very tough. I won't like, let's be honest. It's realistically when you're looking at it, is for me it's a 0-3 range, and then this is me nitpicking.
Wait, you didn't mention the O-line, which is I'm surprised about.
Because you mentioned it, right?
Okay, no, I thought you were
obvious.
gonna make it a 4 then because of the O-line. But
Yeah, that the O line's obvious.
Yeah.
Right, for me. Like that in terms of kind of comes into 0 and 2,
Yeah.
0 to 2 in terms of offensive help in general. But when I'm looking at it, that's where the concerns lie for the Chiefs for me. But again, it's not anything it's not an emergency for the Kansas City Chiefs right now.
But part of me wanted to say 0 because they're the Chiefs, but at the same time, like for me, stuff seems somewhat stagnant now for the last couple of years. Like, is it, which is kind of crazy because they get to the Super Bowl, regardless of it. But like this last couple of years, like last year, they were 15-2. They're already 0-2. Are they really gonna go 15-0 when they have to play the Bills? They have to play the Ravens. Like, yeah, next week they're gonna probably get on the right track and play the Giants, who we're gonna talk about in a second here. But like, I don't know. Like Matt Nagy's not a play caller. I get that, but at the same time, it's like he has something to do with it. People are obviously calling for his ass because they were a different team under Bieniemy early times there, right? Well, talk about a shit show with that too as well. Bieniemy not ruined his career, and then the Chiefs thing. But one last thing as well. Defensively, they don't look as strong as we did. I don't want to say Chris Jones is washed. Maybe this is going to be a motivating factor for him. But like that end of the Chargers game, he did not make the right play. We all know that. This game, even he's like talking trash to Jalen Hurts, like, oh, you only got 100 yards. Yeah, okay, I get that. But at the end of the day, like Jalen Hurts was right. You lost a damn game.
Yeah, that's true. But here's the thing, defense is fine.
Yeah.
Overall, they didn't perform the best against the Chargers, but against the Eagles, they did much better. Yeah. So defensively, they will be fine. Defensively, I don't have too many issues with. And like you said, as long as Chris Jones just starts playing like Chris Jones, they'll be perfectly fine. So defense is not an issue. Just one thing is like the 1 seed is already looking bleak for the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion, because with the Bills starting off 2-0, the Ravens are 1-1, but the only loss is against the Bills, which is reasonable. And the way that how dominant they look, like, it's clear that right now at this moment, the Chiefs are not the best team in the one in the division right now, and 2 in their conference, which is obviously uncharted territory for Kansas City fans, in my opinion.
So revisiting again, we're overreacting clearly because there's been 2 games. We're talking about panic meter. But if I were to say right now, the Chiefs will lose the division, you're not buying that, right?
No. That's
an ultimate overreaction.
That's a little panic. Yeah, that's like a 7-8.
Because at the end of the day, you anticipate them taking the division at the end of the day and still challenge for the conference at most.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, no, they will figure it out.
So let's move on to the next team. I mentioned the New York Giants, who the next Chiefs opponent are. They are 0-2. However, they're not gonna pass the Bills Ravens, but the Cowboys and Giants had probably a top 3 game of the year so far in the NFL, where the Giants, Russell Wilson, we were talking about how this is his last chance. Jackson Dart might be coming in on a full-time basis, not on like specific gadget plays. Russell Wilson turned back the damn clock. Malik Neighbors showed why he is probably the best receiver in his draft class. And if it wasn't for Brandon Aubrey to exist to hit that 64-yard field goal to make it go to overtime, we would not be talking about the Giants at this point. We'd be talking about the Cowboys.
Russell Wilson put up a great performance. Russell Wilson also put up a stinker in overtime.
Yeah.
The fact that he did that in overtime after having that great performance kind of tarnishes the fact that he had a great performance. He was absolutely awful in overtime. And in terms of Jackson Dart starting week 3, in my opinion, still should be a possibility. When I'm looking at, I said that even like when we're watching the games, we're like, oh, Russell Wilson is going to start week 3.
Yeah.
But then overtime happened. And now I'm looking at it, Jackson Dart starting week 3 should be a possibility. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not.
No. Yeah.
But I would heavily still consider Jackson Dart for week 3 just because of what Russell Wilson did in overtime. And what he did in overtime was literally worse than what J.J. McCarthy did at Sunday Night Football.
Well, so I'm going to add to bounce off your point a little bit there. They also play the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense is not good. If you let Russell Wilson carve you up like that, you always giggle when the name Trayvon Diggs gets targeted comes up.
It's like interception or a 50-yard game.
Exactly, right? Yeah, because like at the end of the day, like the Giants week 1 was atrocious. Like Commanders did not look good themselves, but the Giants somehow made themselves look even worse than they were. Because we thought at the end of the day that we acknowledged that the Giants where they have the hardest schedule in football based on strength of schedule at the beginning of the year. We knew that it was tough to give them 3 wins. We both gave them 3 wins prediction. We knew that they have the caliber of jumping that up to 7 games maybe. It was just a tough schedule part that ruins them.
But how do you rank that in the panic meter though? Because in terms of panic meter, right? Expectations come into it. So and we don't expect much for the New York Giants. Let's be honest.
Yeah, this is the expectations of the Giants. Probably lose, but play like how they kind of played this past game. Maybe defensively was the thing why. But at the end of the day, that Cowboys offense is legit. Passing offense especially. But I mean, Javonte Williams had a great game again. So maybe that's the point. So panic meter wise, I gave him a 3. Because at the end of the day, they don't have expectations. For them, it's just the process, right? Brian Daboll's trying to save his job. We will see what ends up happening with Jackson Dart because, like, again, I don't think he's going to be benched. Russell Wilson's getting benched this game because he did. At the end of the day, the first 4 quarters, he was amazing, right? But then in overtime and the first game, he was atrocious. So we'll see what's ends up happening. But the panic meter is 3 because at the end of the day, you're probably still going to be anticipated, in our opinion, to get a top 7 pick. Obviously, for Giants fans or Giants players, the expectations are different, especially the players. But yeah, like I'm not panicking too much because at the end of the day, you should be getting a top pick regardless. And you're going to see what Jackson Dart truly is in this draft. And I don't think he's at the moment of seeing some college football at the moment. Jackson Dart can still be better. There's no. Okay. I know how Caleb Williams hasn't performed yet, but there's no like Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence guy in this draft.
The panic meter for me is 6. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Week 1 was bad. And I have to factor in week 1.
Yeah, we do.
Right? 100%. Week 1 was atrocious. When I was looking at week 1, I was like panic meter 10. The reason why I went lower is just because obviously the week 2 performance was better. But here's where I am panicking for the New York Giants. And this is for, certain individuals. Number 1 being Brian Daboll.
Yeah.
Obviously his ass is going to be on fire because his seat is definitely getting hot as the New York Giants head coach and has been hot for a while. Same goes for, is it Joe Schuin? I was about to say Jim Schuin, the GM.
It's Schuin. I'll double check the name.
I forgot his first name. But Schuin is obviously another factor. I was surprised he wasn't even already fired.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. And here's what I noticed in week 1 where I'm a little bit like, I feel concerned. Joe Schuin, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the reason why I'm bumped it up to a 6 here. And I know he had a much better performance and they had a much better performance in week 2. But like, let's be honest, it's not happening every week. They're not playing the Dallas Cowboys defense every week.
Yeah.
Right? There's going to be bigger and tougher teams. They're literally going to have tougher opponents. Malik Neighbors looked pissed off in week 1.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a concern.
Yeah.
That's where I panic because if he ain't happy, you guys are cooked. And making Malik Neighbors happy is going to be a big thing. I'm not saying Malik Neighbors like a diva or anything or like, this bad attitude guy. But I'm just saying this in terms of what are you going to have to build for the future? You're going to want Malik Neighbors to be there, right? And just giving this guy a sign that like things can work out here is going to be very important for you. And what happened in week 1 was not that at all. So that's where my panic meter goes a little bit high for the New York Giants.
The reason why mine went down to 3, I had him maybe at a 5 after week 1. It went down because of week 2, right? And I still expect Jackson Dart to get in there to see what's going to end up happening. And we'll see if that's the true succession plan. We'll see what, again, there are going to be coaches that become available. Not all of them are going to pan out. I mean, early days of Ben Johnson doesn't look great at the moment either. But like guys like Joe Brady might be available. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go nuts, their offensive coordinator might be available once again. But yeah, no, like overall for me, it is a 3. However, the way they played, I'm going to ask you this. You will be surprised if they somehow not finish last in their division.
They should be last in division, yeah.
Okay. Next up,
yeah,
I mentioned
expectations are not there.
I mentioned Ben Johnson. We're gonna talk about the Chicago Bears, and man, our expectations for them at the beginning of the year were a little bit high on them, and they did not live up to it. We have to recap a little bit. Week 1, first quarter, first drive mainly of Caleb Williams. We thought this guy, he's fixed. They got the guy. The Chicago Bears fans are always looking for a quarterback pretty much their whole lives, it seems like, because they're always carried by their defenses. And after that 10 for 10 start, he was atrocious. Going into week 2, we saw a Detroit Lions team who was shit against the Green Bay Packers. Well, that just proved that the Green Bay Packers are probably the class of the division and probably definitely a Super Bowl contender after their performance against the Commanders. On top of that, what they did against the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions gave Ben Johnson an ass whooping. Literally, not even figuratively, literally. They were horrible.
Panic meter
For me is an 8.
I'm giving it a 7. Look, the expectation is there for the Bills. Or not the Bills, the Bears. Obviously, the expectation there for the Bills because they're fucking fantastic. But the Bears, we fell for it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Again, back-to-back years, we fell for it. Caleb Williams right now is just very inconsistent. We don't know what we're going to get from him throughout, not just throughout from week to week, just throughout from play by play in terms of his production.
Does he give you post-injury Carson Wentz vibes?
Little bit. And the good thing is that he's still young and he could develop in obviously year 2.
He's still developing the relationship with the coach as well.
And like he's already dealt with 2 coaches and technically 3 coaches in terms of interim for Eberflus as well in literally
his first 2
a season and
and 2 games.
A season and 2 games. Defensively, obviously, like I'm not saying anyone could really stop the Lions defense, but yeah, defensively did not look obviously great.
You mean the Lions offense?
Or the Lions offense. The Lions defense usually stops themselves, but Lions defense obviously performed themselves. Rome Odunze had a great game.
That's it. That's so far.
But in terms of this weapon group, I still don't understand how they can't get DJ Moore going. And they haven't really done that the last 2 years under Caleb Williams. The first year with Justin Fields, I think DJ Moore had a slow start and that ended up very strong.
Yeah.
Right. He had a solid year. He had over 1,000 receiving yards. We're not seeing DJ Moore as a DJ Moore we saw in Carolina over the last 2 years. And that's one thing I had a little bit more hope for Ben Johnson to unlock him a little bit, but also give Caleb Williams that go-to guy. And DJ Moore is every bit of that number 1 receiver and a go-to guy. Whenever you're in trouble and you need someone to get you out of it, DJ Moore can be that guy. And that's one thing I do not like about the Chicago Bears right now. And in terms of Ben Johnson, I don't know if right now is feeling too much for him. He's feeling overwhelmed. But he has to juggle a lot of responsibilities. And also, he's probably getting hit with a reality check because he doesn't have an accurate QB. He doesn't have an explosive run game. He doesn't have the greatest O-line, or one of the best O-lines in the NFL. And he doesn't have Amon-Ra St. Brown and a speed demon like Jameson Williams anymore. He's going to have to figure out a way how to build these guys up to be that or be anywhere close to that. And he has going to have to find a way to do that in different ways because Caleb Williams ain't Jared Goff, who's going to be a pocket passer. Caleb Williams is an improviser. That's who he is.
Yeah, which is why I don't know why Caleb Williams likes to play a lot of hero ball. And again, we'll see. Again, it's week 2. Maybe this relationship develops. But the reason why I put him at an 8 is because Caleb Williams does have the reputation of like not being a great leader. We've seen certain reactions, certain comments after games. Yes, I understand Eberflus wasn't the greatest coach for him, but like at the end of the day, like this is a new coach. It feels like we're watching Eberflus's team all over again in a sense. Dennis Allen, a little bit annoying to watch. Again, I understand the corners were injured in week 1, but you guys, again, week 1, you had that game won. Jalen, there was no reason for JJ McCarthy to do what he did. And obviously a lot of that goes on Caleb Williams for not completing passes properly. And obviously the defense for letting that happen in the 4th quarter. Because when you look at in week 2, the Vikings looked ass complete the whole game. And the Atlanta Falcons did a damn good job getting to him, causing turnovers, even after AJ Terrell got hurt, right? So yeah, for me, it's an 8 because like, yeah, I understand they're going to finish last in the division, but we still thought that we were going to have like a, 1 game under 500 record. The OKC Thunder, I'm going to give the example especially for basketball fans out there. The OKC Thunder, before they won the championship, they took step after step after step, and we saw the process, right? They were a play-in team, then they became a playoff team. They won the conference, but then we saw the lackluster stuff where they got out in the 2nd round. They made the adjustments they needed, and they won the NBA championship. That's what I'm expecting from this Bears type of team to take those type of steps, and so far, it has not been. It's kind of like regressed a little bit under the coaching stuff.
Here's the thing, and here's a step-by-step process. Do what the Arizona Cardinals are doing.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, right? That's the next step you got to take. But yeah, Chicago Bears, it is fair to panic for them right now, in my opinion.
Let's move on. We're stuck with the NFC here. We'll go to the NFC South, and we're going to go to these are going to be a little bit quick. Carolina Panthers. My panic meter is a 6.
I'm a freaking 8. Look. And that 8 is because of Bryce Young.
Yeah.
It's just simple as that.
I was going to put it under 5, but yeah.
Look, the defense is bad. We know that. All they have is literally Derek Brown and JC Horn. And like, you're not going to get much done. You're going to allow points. But we had the expectations for this offense to take step forward this year. And obviously, a big part of that was going to be Bryce Young taking a small step forward from his last year in terms of how he ended off the year after coming back in for Andy Dalton. But right now, Bryce Young looks every bit of rookie Bryce Young, in my opinion. Yes, there's moments or flashes here and there where he does make some good plays. And also, they had a moment against the Arizona Cardinals where they looked like they could have pulled off a comeback.
The Cardinals are about to give him the game after penalty after penalty after penalty.
And obviously, that's not going to happen every time. Realistically, the 2 games they played, they literally got battered in both, no matter what the score lines tell them, right? And obviously, the Cardinals game was closer than it should be. But that's exactly what it was. It was closer than it should be, like you said, because of the Arizona Cardinals. The Panthers are getting dominated.
Yeah.
It's just simple as that. And obviously, Bryce Young is one of the big reasons why.
Bryce Young just looks like, because he's too small, he overthinks to a certain degree. Like once he gets the pass rush going, like on him, it's like, oh my God, I can't escape this really because I blah, blah, blah. And then throws the ball away. And then we see it get intercepted or whatever the case may be. The reason why I have it at a 6 is because we had some, again, similar to the Giants, we had some expectations that they were going to keep games close, maybe even challenge for the number 2 seed. And so far, it does not look great, right? That game, the Cardinals should have blown them out of the water, in my personal opinion. It's just like, again, they gave them chance after chance. They got a touchdown. They got the ball back. They could have won the game. Again, put a sick drive. You could have arguably won the game. It was messy, the ending for both sides, the Cardinals and Panthers, to end the game. Ultimately, Josh, I believe, ended up sacking him to close out the game there. Yeah, so the reason why I agree with you. I could see the 6 is because it's simple as we expected them to be better. I want to say they had expectations to go do anything else. But again, similar to the Thunder scenario, next step is do what the Cardinals did last year and challenge for maybe a playoff spot if you can in the wild card at least.
Exactly. Let's move on. New Orleans Saints.
New Orleans Saints, for me, I'm going to just keep it simple. It's a 1 for me. The reason why is because they literally have 0 expectations for me.
Exactly. The reason why they're a 1 for me and not 0 is because they're looking a little bit too good. They actually might win some football games here.
That's the thing. I mean, they could have easily won this Niners game because Niners, the injuries they had, but obviously the Niners...
Even the Cardinals game, they had a chance.
Yeah.
Right, in week 1. So my only panic for him is not to win too many games in terms of ruining your draft
I'm guessing
position.
yours is a 1?
Yeah, I'll give it a 1. That was the only reason why.
Yeah, I mean...
But honestly, I'm quite surprised. I'll give him credit where credit's due. I'm giving Kellen Moore credit. I'm giving Rattler credit for just battling. It's simple as that.
But before we move on to the AFC teams left, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. We'll be dropping weekly reactions to every NFL week, almost every NFL team. We'll see how that ends up going. We'll be dropping some other mixed content in there as well for the NFL channel. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. Comment down below your overreactions. What are your panic levels if you're fans of any of these winless teams? And we're also on Spotify, so make sure you guys check out the link down below and rate, review, and download the podcast over there as well. But let's move on to the AFC North, and we're going to go to the only winless team in that division right now, and that's the Cleveland Browns.
Again, it's kind of similar to the Giants and Saints in terms of I don't have many expectations for them.
They almost won week 1 if it wasn't for their kicker
yeah.
and bad drop interception type vibes, because they were even on Flacco in week 1, but then they got their ass kicked in week 2.
But then that's fair. We expected to get their ass kicked by the Baltimore Ravens.
Especially how they lost their week 1 game as well.
So when I'm looking at it, I'm going to give it just a 2.
I gave it a 2 as well.
Yeah, that just, again, because they have lost. So Stefanski and Stefanski and the rest of the coaching staff could feel the hot seat there. But in terms of what we expected of the Cleveland Browns,
we're expecting one of Gabriel or Sanders to come in there.
Yeah.
By the way, did you see the Sanders story about not wanting to be a Raven? I kind of get it because you're going to be behind Lamar.
Yeah, he's not going to play.
But then you go to Cleveland out of all places.
Exactly.
As well.
But yeah, when I'm looking at the Cleveland Browns, it's just I don't expect much of them. So if I'm looking at it from an outside perspective, there's probably a 2. But I understand if Cleveland Browns fans say it's a literal 7 just because they've been living in that hellhole for 20 years now.
Next up is the Tennessee Titans. And I guess my panic meter is a 1. And the simple reason is it's similar to the Saints. They just do not have a great roster, in my opinion, overall. But the reason why it's also at a 1, Cam Ward looks good. If Cam Ward did not look at the first 2 weeks, I would be like, okay, yeah, because that was supposed to be the franchise quarterback. The difference with Rattler is he's not trending to be the franchise quarterback because they're supposed to probably take a quarterback this upcoming draft. Cam Ward looks good. The plays he made in this game, you're not supposed to throw the ball across the field, but he improvised, got the plays done. Even in week 1, there were certain plays where, his if you look at the counting stats, like Dan Orlovsky laid it out perfectly. Like, yeah, if you look at the counting stats, like you look at the stat board, it's the stat sheet, it looks like he had a horrible game, right? But then when you actually watch, there were some drops or some stuff. He's a rookie at the end of the day. We don't know what's going to happen with Callahan's future. The roster isn't the greatest around him, but he at least looks dynamic and good that, like, hey, he could take that step to be the franchise quarterback for the Tennessee Titans.
Here's the best way I could assess this for Cam Ward. He looks like Cam Ward. When coming into some quarterbacks' rookie years, like Bryce Young did not look like Alabama Bryce Young in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Cam Ward does look like himself. Cam Ward looks like he's playing.
Yeah, from Miami.
Cam Ward looks like he's playing the football that he's always played and throughout his entire life. And like you said, there's flashes of him making good plays. There's also some flashes where we're seeing him just creating plays. And like that touchdown is a big example. His first career touchdown with that crossbody toss when he was going right and just throws it left. Like he had the nonverbal communication of telling his receiver, get across, there's space over there. And obviously he had the wherewithal as well as the arm strength and the imagination just to pull that off. So yeah, I'm gonna give it, honestly, I might even give it a 0 right now, just because I'm not gonna criticize a dude for your first game in the NFL against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, your
Defense,
first two games,
especially.
like, who knows? Like, CJ Stroud didn't start out. Like, I mean, CJ Stroud is also at the great.
Like, you literally face the Broncos defense. Like, let's be honest. Like, who's gonna have much success other than Daniel Jones? Who's gonna have much success against the Broncos defense?
It's like CJ Stroud was good his first 2 weeks, but the Texans were not great, and then they took a huge jump. Maybe again, I don't think they have that roster that they do on CJ Stroud's rookie year, but. Yeah, like what this Tennessee team, like as what he has done so far, they're not like Bryce Young mode where you put the panic meter high, because Bryce Young does not look like Bryce Young we expected to see. The number 1 overall pick, at least this number 1 overall pick, looks good at the moment, and we'll assess it in a couple of years.
Same goes with Caleb Williams as well.
Yeah, exactly, right? Let's move on to the final two teams, and they're both from the AFC North, and we're going to start off with the New York Jets. We already talked about this last week. That week 1 matchup against the Steelers, were like, damn, what the hell? Like, maybe the Steelers are going to be good. The Jets, like, overall, like, they don't look terrible. We'll see how it ends up going. The Steelers, obviously, again, we're not going to talk about much of this game. Not a great game against the Seattle Seahawks. The bad, unlucky interception to the weird play. Your reaction to the play first. I'm going to pivot off quickly. The Steelers play where the bounce ball into the end zone. Like, how did that happen under Mike Tomlin, out of all people?
Let's just say this.
It was a rookie. I understand that, but like still.
I wouldn't want to be that player going back into the locker room and facing Mike Tomlin. Exactly. Let's just say that, right? Because things like that shouldn't be happening, and it can't be happening. And like, yeah, does some of it belong to the coaching staff? 100%, just because they gotta, I guess, really assert the rules into these players' heads that like, here's what you do.
This is the rule
here's
change.
What you don't do.
Careful, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And when I'm looking at Mike Tomlin and that play, you just know that he's not going to be very happy.
Yeah, his post-game presser was definitely saying like,
let's say this, it's gonna be, it's like getting a stern talking to from your dad when he did something wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And in terms of it being professional, it's not necessarily Karshi level.
Yeah.
But in terms of like a really loud lecture could happen in that locker room.
But pivoting back to the Jets. Week 2 did not look great as well. Again, you're playing the Buffalo Bills. I think I'm not too surprised about that. But the panic meter for me is at a 5, because Justin Fields did get hurt and he looked amazing in week 1. Breece Hall looked amazing in week 1. Garrett Wilson looked amazing in week 1, and that's against a Pittsburgh defense, right? This week, Pittsburgh defense didn't look as great either. Or at least they were better against the Seahawks, in my opinion. And then Aaron Rodgers said it perfectly. It's only 2 games. They have 1 win, whatever. But like with the Jets, with Fields going out with concussion protocol, who knows? That might be a week, maybe. I don't know, week or 2, depending on how a person heals from it. We know it's different for each player. But that's why I have him at a 5. I like them so far. And the week 1, I can't judge them too much against the Bills because it's the Bills. So that's why I have him. I'm in the middle at the moment, because I don't know if the Pittsburgh game's an anomaly.
Yeah. I agree with you. I agree with a 5, so I'll give it a 5 as well. And the reason is, 1, because this is kind of like, I know it sucks for Jets just because they've always feel like they're kind of rebuilding or retooling or adjusting. And right now, I feel like they're in an adjustment period just because they felt like they had it all with Aaron Rodgers and the opportunity that they could have potentially made the playoffs. And obviously that experiment did not work at all. So when I'm looking at it, this is kind of like a rebound year. Try to figure out who they really are, who can take us where we want to be, type of thing. The reason why I bump it up to like a 5 is just because, like you said, the people that should be looking good didn't look good in week 2.
I mean, Fields was awful himself. Before
Yeah, and I'm not gonna put it too much because it was against the Bills, so that's why it's nothing like too crazy for me. But like when you're looking at it, you want Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, and Quinnen Williams has been doing that, just to like show up every week, because we know that if there's gonna be a time for the Jets to like make some moves to really up their rankings in the NFL and make a playoff push, whenever it could be, it could be next year, it could be the year after. But then again, it's also the Jets, so it could also be never. But when I'm looking at it, people like Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams are gonna be a part of that. So in terms of having these core players and your core star players just looking good week in and week out, showing that potential that they can, do something here, is going to be very important for me for when I'm looking at the Jets this year.
I mean, my assessment for them is not going to come next week because they play the Bucs, but the week after when they play the Dolphins. And speaking of the Miami Dolphins, they're the last winless team remaining that we have to talk about at this moment. I'm at a full blast 10. And you know that meme?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can we go higher than 10?
I mean, hey, I don't know if you're doing graphics in this one, but like if you're doing the meme of where there's a dog sitting in the room of fire and he just says, "I'm fine." That's what I feel like the Dolphins fans are at the moment, because this team, like week 1 Indy, we talked about it last week, atrocious. Like they were not prepared whatsoever, whatever the case was. They went on to play the New England Patriots, and the New England Patriots, again, like they're kind of disappointing ourselves, because we would have been at our panic meter for the New England Patriots is probably would have been at 8-9 ourselves as well if they ended up losing this game to the Dolphins. It still might kind of is, because it is the Dolphins and they had to win how they did. But Drake may look good. At one point, you had the lead in this game, and then you get the punt return touchdown, and then immediately give up a kick return touchdown. Tua does not look great. Like I think Tua's figured out now, because like what's Tua's skill set that made him that elite college quarterback, where it was tank for Tua? It was that he could process the game and get the ball out quick. And like Xavier Howard said last week about Indianapolis, you take that away, he's screwed, because then he's not mobile enough. He is very injury risk is high, right? Concussion, whatever the case might be. And you already have the drama going in with Tyreek Hill and all that. Like we're anticipating him to be a Kansas City Chief probably come trade deadline. Similar to Devontae.
Let's look at this. Offensively, they look better. Let's just give them that.
Yeah.
All right. And the Patriots defense, I know they don't have Christian Gonzalez right now, but the Patriots defense is good. So I'll give them that credit. But that's the only credit I'll give them. The fact that the Dolphins defense is first 10 possessions in this season were all scores just shows you the fact that these guys suck. They're not a very good football team. They're not a prepared football team. And they have talent on that defense. They have Minkah Fitzpatrick. They have Bradley Chubb. They have Jalen Phillips. They have Chop Robinson. Like they have some people.
Some of these guys were injured last year and they had a really good defense last year.
Exactly. And then obviously that itself just raised the panic meter up. And obviously they allowed 30 plus points to the New England Patriots, back-to-back games with 30 points or more for the Miami Dolphins allowed. And on top of that, the offense, like you said, it's figured out. It feels like it is. And obviously a large part has to do with Tua, and a large part has to do with Mike McDaniel. In terms of the coaching staff and hot seat, that's like the number one in the NFL.
Now it is, yeah. Because
right?
Steichen was the other one, and he's 2-0 at the moment.
In terms of what the hell we're watching performance-wise, the Dolphins, panic meter has to be 100% out of 10. And in terms of quarterback situation and what's going on with Tua Tagovailoa, that's also a panic meter. 10.
Yeah. If you're watching, the game is different because like week 2, he went 26 for 32, 315 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. But that interception was also brutal that he threw, right? Overall, Tyreek finally, I forgot to mention this last week. Tyreek does not have, it's been a year since he had like a 30 plus yard something reception, whatever the case may be. Like again, Looking at the counting stats, he was fine this week. 6 receptions, 109 yards. Jalen Waddle seemed like it was definitely a better game offensively.
Yeah, 100%. It was like we'll give him credit.
But the Miami Dolphins' expectations are to be in the playoffs. They shouldn't. Usually, what they do at the beginning of the year is give people hope, kind of like what the Arizona Cardinals do. This time they're starting off 0-2. They're not going to get better as the season goes on, and we know that. We've seen that they suck at cold weather.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, the fact that they lost to Indy, who's potentially a team that they're challenging for a wild card spot. I mean, at the moment now, Indy might be challenging for the division, but you know what I'm saying. And then New England, who they're challenging probably for a wild card spot, like we thought as well. Right? So, like, yeah, the panic meter's a full level high. We don't know what's happening with that team overall. There's a lot of drama behind the scenes. We're expecting probably changes to happen, so on and so forth. And ultimately, we'll see see what ends up happening, because their upcoming schedule, let me just quickly check it, doesn't look like they got the Bills Thursday Night Football. I swear to God, the Bills better kick their ass. They're playing in Buffalo as well, right? Then they have the Jets. That's going to be a determining factor for me. That's 0-4 right there. Then yeah, they might beat the Panthers. We'll see what ends up happening. But like their schedule, like if they end up going like 0-6 somehow to start by the end of week 6, which is against the Chargers or whatever, yeah, this team's fully being blown up. We're seeing.
Here's the thing: the situation and the panic meter is really high because you're looking at a team that's supposed to make the playoffs, right? Or like have playoff aspirations.
And then do stuff in the playoffs.
And potentially do stuff in the playoffs, which they really haven't done just because they can't play in any weather under than 20 degrees Celsius. I don't know where that is Fahrenheit. But when I'm looking at this is a team that has playoff aspirations, who missed the playoffs last year, going into a situation where the locker room isn't together. They're getting figured out. The roster isn't the greatest. Roster construction isn't the greatest, which falls on Greer, the GM. And the reason why the panic meter is high is just because this feels like it is really the last season. Because a team from this year's preseason, where you're looking at wildcard playoff aspirations, to entering next year is a rebuilding team. That's where the panic meter literally goes through the roof. And that's what the Miami Dolphins can be facing very soon if they don't figure this shit out. And right now, it doesn't look like they're going to figure this shit out.
So yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for us. This Miami Dolphins team is ultimately both of ours most pressure teams so far heading into the future, and the biggest team that has the panic level at the moment. So comment down below if you guys agree with that take. Which fan base do you think should panic the most when it comes to the team in the NFL out of these winless teams? Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button as I mentioned below. A video is popping up on the screen. It's our week 1 overreactions. Make sure you guys check out that video. Comment down below, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Peace.